I mean, at the last time that I heard, it was 300 earthquakes, and that was yesterday. Within um, 24 hours, 300. And it made me begin to think. When I hear things like that, I don't brush them off as just something normal. I look at deeper into them, and my antenna goes up, and I cross reference everything to spirit, every single thing, especially things as monumental as earthquakes. Throughout the Bible, it speaks to earthquakes and them being movements of God. All throughout the book of Matthew, when Jesus was crucified, the earth shook and rocks broke open. The book of Revelation speaks to earthquakes. All throughout the Bible, you hear of the earth shaking violently. And it's all synonymous to the movement of God or the wrath of God, either earthquakes and famine or earthquakes in some form of pestilence. And so when I heard of this tremendous movement of God within a very short span, it made me think to how God moves. I know many of you guys saw the earthquake in Colombia, how it was videotaped and how we were able to get a first person perspective on what it would have been like to have been there. You see buildings shaking and breaking apart like they are, doll houses. You see people in the street being moved back and forth by the shaking of the earth. And all these things, they remind me of so many instances in the Bible where God is using the shaking of the earth to do his will. When we look in the book of Baruch, out of the Apocrypha, we see something similar to this when God buries the temple of Jerusalem. The earth shook violently. It shook so much that it buried the temple underground. When you look at the earth shaking and on the pictures of what happened in Colombia, you can imagine something even of a larger magnitude happening. So much so that it breaks up the earth beneath our feet, loosens it, so that the water that is deep within the earth starts to rise and mix with the dirt and swallow up whole places. I immediately began to think, how could this planet do that? How? If we're just living on a lifeless rock full of dirt, how could it shake so violently? What within it? What deep inside of it? What underneath the surface is there that would provoke such movement? I created a Hey Friend episode to support this, to get the thought of this moving within the hearts and minds of all of you. And that is to say that the earth is alive, friend. She is alive. It brings me back to the original concept of how this planet came to be. Many of us only see it from a surface level perspective: dirt, rock, water, grass, and all the various components that are birthed from such. Then we look above ourselves and we see the stars and we see the planets and we see the moon and we see the sun. We see clouds, we see sky, we see darkness. as if we are in between two separate living worlds. We are bound in between two separate, distinct living worlds. I say living because if the earth can move in the way that it has in the form of earthquakes, if the earth can produce life, if it can receive life in the form of things that is of it, and allow it to decompose and to be converted back into new life, without depending completely on it for its survival, meaning the earth doesn't need to have any particular species decompose for it to do what it does. It's fixed in that nature. It's going to produce regardless. Yet all that is birthed of it goes back into it, and it is recycled back out again. How could it be dead? The dead don't do that. Only the living do that. When we look in the sky and we see the planets in their fixed nature, meaning their movement never shifts. They're fixed. They move the same way 99.999% of the time, until they reach a threshold and they become weak and they're prone to fall out of orbit or to self-destruct. Yet the mere fact that they can move or that they can grow old and become weak to the point that they self-destruct means that they must be alive, friend. Only the living experiences such. It brought me in my thinking to the story of Tiamat. Tiamat, the one that was slain, and in her being slain, created this world that we're in. Her body, the dense matter, the physicality of who she is, was cut into two. One portion of her made the heavens, and the other portion of her made this earth. Yet when you say she is slain, is she? It's interesting. Because if we are smack dab in the middle of what was created from such, we are living and surrounded by new life that springs forth from her. If we are blessed with the radiance of the sun and the moon and the stars and all of the energies that emanate from them in real time, then those aspects are still alive in her. They're not being manufactured from some subservient individual that superimposed itself upon her. That's her. She's sleeping. Just as we sleep. And when we sleep, our body does not shut down. It doesn't stop. It goes into somewhat of a dormancy. It goes on autopilot. That's what's happening. Seem like we've been on autopilot, friend. But it seems as if movement is beginning to happen, as it does when many of us wake up. We don't just, oop, we're woke. We begin to move subtly, turn over, get comfortable in a new position, go back to sleep. It seems as if this is what is occurring.